I thought you were different, Graham, I whispered, my voice breaking. But I see now you're just like the rest. Graham's face contorted, a mix of anger and disbelief. What the hell are you talking about, Marlene? I've given you everything. I stood my ground, years of pent-up frustration finally boiling over. Everything? You've taken everything from me. The pristine kitchen, once my pride and joy, now felt like a gilded cage. Graham's expensive suit and perfectly coiffed hair seemed garish, a stark contrast to the hollowness I felt inside. You ungrateful dash, Graham started, but I cut him off. No, I'm done being silent. My hands shook, but my voice grew stronger. I'm done pretending this is the life I wanted. Graham's eyes narrowed. Watch yourself, Marlene. Remember who pays the bills around here. A bitter laugh escaped me. Oh, I remember. How could I forget when you remind me every single day? My name is Marlene, and this is the moment I realized my fairy tale marriage was nothing but a beautifully crafted lie. It hadn't always been like this. When I first met Graham at a charity gala 5 years ago, he swept me off my feet. Charming, successful, and attentive, he seemed like the answer to all my prayers. A whirlwind romance followed, and before I knew it, we were walking down the aisle. You'll never want for anything, Graham had promised on our wedding night. I'll take care of everything. And he did in his own way. The house, the cars, the vacations, all the trappings of a perfect life. But as the months turned into years, I began to see the strings attached to every gift. Marlene, darling, Graham's voice dripped with condescension, pulling me back to the present. Let's not be dramatic. You have a wonderful life here. I looked around the kitchen, seeing it with new eyes. The state-of-the-art appliances I was expected to use to prepare his gourmet meals. The spotless countertops I spent hours maintaining to his exacting standards. A wonderful life? I echoed. Is that what you call this? Being your personal maid and cook? Graham's jaw clenched. I work hard to provide for this family. The least you could do is show some appreciation. Family. The word stung. We had no children of our own, but Graham's son from his previous marriage, Dustin, lived with us. Once a polite teenager, he now mirrored his father's disdain for me. As if on cue, Dustin sauntered into the kitchen. What's going on? Why are you yelling at Dad? I turned to him, hoping to find an ally, but his cold eyes told me otherwise. Nothing, son, Graham said smoothly. Marlene's just having one of her moments. Dustin snorted. Again, maybe if she actually did something with her life instead of spending your money, she wouldn't be so miserable. The casual cruelty in his voice was the final straw. I grabbed my purse from the counter and headed for the door. Where do you think you're going? Graham demanded. I paused, my hand on the doorknob. Out! I need some air. Don't be ridiculous, Graham scoffed. Dinner needs to be ready by 7. We have guests coming, remember? For a moment, I almost gave in. The urge to apologize, to fall back into the familiar pattern of obedience, was overwhelming. But something inside me had shifted, a spark of defiance I thought long extinguished. Make your own damn dinner, I said and walked out the door. I stared at the ATM screen in disbelief. Insufficient funds. How is that possible? I just deposited my birthday check from Mom last week. Is there a problem, ma'am? The bank teller's voice startled me. I forced a smile. No, just checking my balance. Thank you. As I walked out of the bank, my mind raced. Graham must have transferred the money without telling me. Again, the realization hit me like a punch to the gut. I was trapped not just emotionally, but financially too. Back at home, I found Graham in his study, engrossed in paperwork. Graham, did you move money from our joint account? I tried to keep my voice steady. He barely looked up. I had some business expenses. Why? I couldn't withdraw any cash today. I thought we agreed dash. Graham cut me off. Marlene, you know I handle the finances. You don't need to worry about it. But it's our money, I protested. I should at least know dash. Our money. Graham's laugh was cold. I earn it, Marlene. You spend it. Let's not pretend otherwise. The casual cruelty of his words left me speechless. I retreated to the kitchen, my sanctuary turned prison, and mechanically began preparing dinner. Dustin sauntered in, phone in hand. Hey, Marlene, what's for dinner? Chicken parmesan, I replied, grateful for the distraction. Cool. Oh, by the way, I need $500 for a new gaming console. I hesitated. Dustin, I'm not sure if dash. Come on, he interrupted. It's not like you guys can't afford it. Dad always says you're just the housewife, so what else are you going to spend money on? The knife I was holding clattered to the counter. What did you just say? Dustin rolled his eyes. Chill out. I'm just saying, it's not like you contribute anything else. I felt something snap inside me. Get out of my kitchen. Now. Whatever, Dustin muttered, slouching away. That night, after a tense dinner where Graham praised Dustin's latest school achievement and ignored my existence, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. How had I let myself become so isolated, so dependent? The next morning, I made a decision. While Graham was at work and Dustin at school, I dug out my old laptop. With shaking hands, I created a blog. The Invisible Wife, I titled it. I began to write, pouring out years of frustration and pain. The words flowed easily, a cathartic release of everything I'd bottled up for so long. I used to dream of Prince Charming, I typed. Instead, I got a master in a prison of luxury. Hours passed as I wrote post after post. Stories of financial control, emotional manipulation, the slow erosion of my self-worth. As I hit publish on each one, I felt a tiny spark of something I hadn't experienced in years. Hope. That evening, as I served dinner, Graham narrowed his eyes at me. You seem different today. I shrugged, fighting to keep my expression neutral. Just a good day, I guess. Dustin snorted. Yeah, right. What could possibly be good about your day? It's not like you do anything. I bit my tongue, the secret of my blog burning inside me. Let them think I was useless. I knew differently now. Later, as Graham and Dustin watched TV, I snuck back to my laptop. To my shock, my blog already had comments. Women sharing similar stories, offering support and understanding. You're not alone, one wrote. Stay strong. Tears pricked my eyes as I read message after message. For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen, heard, validated. As I closed the laptop, a new resolve settled over me. This blog wasn't just an outlet, it was a lifeline. A step towards reclaiming my identity, my independence. I glanced towards the living room, where Graham and Dustin's laughter echoed. They had no idea what I'd started. And for now, that was exactly how I wanted it. The soft glow of my laptop screen illuminated the dark kitchen as I furiously typed my latest blog post. 3 months had passed since I'd started The Invisible Wife, and the response had been overwhelming. You've given me the courage to speak up, read a comment from user HopefulHeart23. I'm not alone anymore. Tears pricked my eyes as I scrolled through similar messages. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to reply, when I heard footsteps approaching. I slammed the laptop shut just as Graham entered the kitchen. What are you doing up so late? He asked, suspicion lacing his voice. Couldn't sleep, I lied smoothly. Just catching up on some reading. Graham grunted, clearly uninterested. Well, don't forget we have the Johnsons coming for dinner tomorrow. I expect everything to be perfect. As he retreated upstairs, I let out a shaky breath. The constant fear of discovery was exhausting, but the sense of purpose my blog gave me was worth the risk. The next morning, as I prepared for the dinner party, my phone buzzed with a notification. My latest post had gone viral, shared thousands of times across social media platforms. Marlene. Graham's sharp voice cut through my excitement. Where's my blue tie? The one I told you to have dry cleaned. I bit back a retort. It's hanging in your closet, Graham. Right where I put it yesterday. He muttered something under his breath and stomped off. I turned back to my phone, heart racing as I saw an email from a popular women's magazine. They wanted to interview me about my blog. The dinner party that evening was a blur of forced smiles and polite conversation. As I served dessert, Mrs. Johnson turned to me. So, Marlene, what do you do with your time? Any hobbies? Before I could answer, Graham chuckled. Oh, Marlene's content being a homemaker. Aren't you, dear? I felt a surge of defiance. Actually, I said, meeting Mrs. Johnson's eyes, I've recently started writing. It's been quite fulfilling. Graham's fork clattered against his plate. Writing? What on earth about? Just life experiences, I said vaguely, heart pounding. Nothing you'd find interesting, I'm sure. Later that night, after our guests had left and Graham had retired to his study, I snuck back to my laptop. The magazine wanted to do the interview tomorrow. I typed out a quick acceptance, hands shaking with a mix of fear and exhilaration. The next day, I made an excuse about running errands and met the journalist at a small cafe across town. Sarah, the interviewer, was warm and encouraging. Your blog has resonated with so many women, she said. How does it feel to have such an impact? I took a deep breath. Honestly, it's terrifying and empowering all at once. For years, I felt invisible, voiceless. Now, I'm part of a community. We're supporting each other, sharing our stories. It's liberating. As the interview progressed, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I was being seen as Marlene, not just Graham's wife or Dustin's stepmother, but as my own person with thoughts and dreams. One last question, Sarah said as we wrapped up. What's next for The Invisible Wife? I paused, considering. I'm not sure yet, but I know I can't go back to being silent. This blog, this community, it's given me a purpose I didn't even know I was missing. As I drove home, my mind raced with possibilities. The magazine feature would bring even more attention to the blog. More women would find their voices. And maybe, just maybe, I'd find the strength to make real changes in my own life. I pulled into the driveway, steeling myself to face Graham and Dustin. But for the first time in years, I didn't feel dread at the thought of entering my own home. Instead, I felt a glimmer of hope. The seeds of resilience had been planted, and they were beginning to bloom. The annual Thompson family barbecue was in full swing, the backyard filled with laughter and the smell of grilled meat. I plastered on a smile, playing the role of the perfect hostess while my insides churned with anxiety. Marlene, darling, my mother-in-law's shrill voice cut through the chatter. Where's that potato salad you promised? I hurried to the kitchen, grateful for a moment's respite. As I reached for the bowl in the fridge, I caught sight of my reflection in the window. The woman staring back at me looked tired, defeated. I barely recognized her. Need a hand? My mother, Evelyn, appeared in the doorway, concern etched on her face. I'm fine, Mom, I lied, hefting the bowl. Just a bit overwhelmed with all the guests. Evelyn's eyes narrowed, but before she could press further, Graham's booming voice called from the patio. Marlene, where's that damn salad? I hurried out, nearly colliding with Dustin. He smirked, deliberately bumping my shoulder as he passed. The bowl wobbled, a glob of potato salad splattering onto my blouse. Geez, Marlene, Dustin sneered. Can't you do anything right? I bit my tongue, fighting back tears as I set the bowl on the table. Graham glanced at my stained shirt, his lip curling in disgust. For God's sake, Marlene, he hissed. Go change. You're embarrassing me. As I turned to leave, I caught my mother's eye. The pity in her gaze was almost unbearable. Inside, I leaned against the bathroom door, struggling to breathe. My phone buzzed. Another comment on my latest blog post. You're stronger than you know, it read. Don't let them dim your light. Those words gave me the strength to change my shirt and return to the party. But as I stepped back outside, I walked into a conversation that stopped me cold. I don't know how you do it, Graham, my brother-in-law was saying. Running a successful business and dealing with, well, he gestured vaguely in my direction. Graham chuckled. Oh, Marlene? She's harmless. Useless as a housewife, really, but she knows her place. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I stood there, frozen, as the men laughed. Dustin joined in, eager for his father's approval. Yeah, all she does is mope around the house and spend Dad's money, he added. Total dead weight. Something snapped inside me. Years of pent-up frustration and anger bubbled to the surface. Before I knew what I was doing, I marched over to the group. Is that what you really think of me, Graham? My voice was surprisingly steady. A useless housewife. The laughter died abruptly. Graham's face flushed with anger. Marlene, this is hardly the time or place dash. No, I cut him off. I think it's exactly the time and place. You want to talk about useless? How about a husband who belittles his wife at every turn? Or a stepson who shows zero respect? Gasps rippled through the crowd. Dustin's mouth hung open in shock. That's enough, Graham growled, grabbing my arm. You're making a scene. I wrenched away from him. No, Graham. You've been making a scene for years. I'm just finally calling you out on it. With that, I turned and walked away, head held high. The party fell silent behind me. As I reached the house, I felt a gentle hand on my shoulder. It was Evelyn, her eyes shining with a mix of pride and concern. Oh, sweetheart, she whispered. I've been waiting years for you to stand up to him. Come on, let's get out of here. Without a backward glance, I followed my mother to her car. As we pulled out of the driveway, leaving behind the stunned faces of the party guests, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Where to? Evelyn asked softly. I took a deep breath, tasting freedom for the first time in years. Anywhere but here, Mom. Anywhere but here. As we drove away, I knew there was no going back. The breaking point had come, and with it, the first step towards reclaiming my life. The musty scent of old papers filled the air as I sifted through the contents of my father's safe deposit box. Evelyn stood beside me, her hand resting supportively on my shoulder. I can't believe Dad never told me about this, I murmured, examining a thick envelope. Your father always wanted to protect you, Marlene, Evelyn said softly. He knew Graham would try to control this too if he found out. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter and several legal documents. As I read, my eyes widened in disbelief. Mom, I whispered. Dad left me everything. The beach house, his investments, even shares in his company. It's millions. Evelyn squeezed my shoulder. You deserve every penny, sweetheart. Now you can start fresh, on your own terms. As the reality sank in, a plan began to form in my mind. This inheritance wasn't just financial freedom. It was a chance for justice. Back at Evelyn's house, I paced the guest room, my mind racing. I could leave Graham, start a new life. But a part of me, hardened by years of emotional abuse, wanted more. I wanted Graham to feel the powerlessness he'd inflicted on me for so long. My laptop chimed with a notification. Another comment on my blog. Your words gave me the strength to leave my abusive husband. Thank you for showing me I'm not alone. In that moment, everything clicked into place. I knew exactly what I had to do. Over the next few days, I meticulously planned my next steps. I consulted with a lawyer, ensuring Graham couldn't touch my inheritance. I reached out to a small publishing house that had shown interest in my blog, pitching a book idea. And most importantly, I started looking for a place of my own. All the while, Graham's increasingly frantic calls and messages went unanswered. Let him worry, I thought grimly. Let him feel what it's like to be ignored and dismissed. A week after the disastrous family barbecue, I returned home. Graham was waiting, his face a mask of barely contained rage. Where the hell have you been? He demanded. Do you have any idea how embarrassing it's been, trying to explain your little tantrum to everyone? I met his gaze steadily. I've been making plans, Graham. Plans that don't include you. He scoffed. Plans? What plans could you possibly make without my money? You'd be surprised, I replied coolly. I'm leaving you, Graham. I'm done being your doormat. His face flushed with anger. Leaving me? And go where, exactly? Do what? You're nothing without me, Marlene. Nothing. I smiled, a calm settling over me. That's where you're wrong. I have my blog, which is becoming quite successful. I have a book deal in the works. And most importantly, I have my inheritance. Graham's eyes narrowed. Inheritance? What inheritance? The one my father left me, I said, savoring the shock on his face. The one you knew nothing about. Turns out I'm worth quite a bit, Graham. And you won't see a penny of it. He lunged forward, grabbing my arm. You can't do this to me. I made you who you are. I wrenched away from him. No, Graham. You tried to destroy who I am. But I'm reclaiming myself, starting now. As I turned to leave, Dustin appeared in the doorway, his face a mix of confusion and anger. What's going on? He demanded. Dad, what's she talking about? I looked at my stepson, feeling a twinge of pity. I'm sorry, Dustin. I tried to be a good stepmother, but you and your father made it clear I was never truly part of this family. Now I'm choosing myself." With that, I walked out, leaving behind a stunned Graham and Dustin. As I drove away, a weight lifted from my shoulders. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, I felt truly free. My phone buzzed, another blog comment. "You're an inspiration," it read. I smiled, realizing that my journey wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all the invisible wives out there, waiting for their chance to shine. The secret plan was in motion, and this was just the beginning. The sleek office space hummed with energy as I surveyed my new empire. The Invisible Wife had transformed from a simple blog into a thriving lifestyle brand, empowering women across the globe. My team bustled around me, preparing for our biggest product launch yet. "Marlene, we've got the final numbers for last quarter," my CFO, Sarah, announced, handing me a report. "We've exceeded projections by 30%. I smiled, a surge of pride washing over me. "Excellent work, everyone. Let's celebrate tonight." As the team cheered, my phone buzzed. Graham's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated before answering. "What is it, Graham?" I asked, my voice cool and professional. "Marlene, I need your help," he stammered, sounding uncharacteristically desperate. "The company's in trouble. I've made some bad investments and dash. And you want me to bail you out?" I finished, my tone sharp. "Please, Marlene. I know things ended badly between us, but dash." I cut him off. "You're right, Graham. Things did end badly. And that's entirely on you." With that, I hung up, feeling a mix of satisfaction and a twinge of guilt. But I pushed the latter aside. I'd earned this success, and I wasn't about to let Graham drag me down again. Later that evening, as we celebrated our company's success, my phone lit up with a news alert. My heart skipped a beat as I read the headline. Thompson Industries faces bankruptcy amid fraud allegations. I excused myself and stepped outside, my mind reeling. Graham's company, the source of his power and arrogance, was crumbling. And judging by his earlier call, he'd seen it coming. As I scrolled through the article, a familiar name caught my eye. Dustin Thompson, now working for his father's company, was implicated in the fraud scheme. My stepson, it seemed, had followed too closely in his father's footsteps. The next morning, I arrived at the office to find a crowd of reporters waiting. News of my connection to Graham had spread, and they were hungry for a statement. "MS. Thompson," one shouted. "Did you know about your ex-husband's fraudulent activities? How do you respond to allegations that your success is built on inside information from Thompson Industries?" I took a deep breath, straightening my shoulders. I left my marriage to Graham Thompson over a year ago. My company, The Invisible Wife, was built from the ground up, fueled by the stories and strength of women who refused to be silenced. I have no connection to Thompson Industries or its current troubles. As I pushed past the reporters, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Dustin. "Marlene, please," he begged, his voice cracking. "Dad's a mess. We need your help. You owe us that much, at least." I felt a flash of anger. "I owe you nothing, Dustin. You and your father made that very clear years ago." "But we're family," he protested. "No, Dustin. We're not. Not anymore." I ended the call, my hands shaking. The empire Graham had built on manipulation and control was falling apart, and a part of me reveled in the justice of it all. But another part ached for the family I'd once hoped we could be. Back in my office, I stared out the window at the city skyline. My own success stood in stark contrast to Graham's downfall. I'd risen from the ashes of our toxic marriage, stronger and more resilient than ever. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. It was Sarah, holding another report. "Marlene, you need to see this," she said, her expression serious. "It seems Thompson Industries' collapse might affect some of our suppliers. We need to act fast to protect our interests." I nodded, pushing thoughts of Graham and Dustin aside. I had my own empire to protect now, one built on empowerment and mutual support rather than manipulation and greed. As I dove into crisis management mode, I couldn't help but feel a sense of irony. The skills I'd honed as the Invisible Wife, adaptability, resilience, strategic thinking, were now the very tools I used to lead my company through turbulent times. The day Graham had dismissed me as a useless housewife felt like a lifetime ago. Now, as I guided my team through this challenge, I knew the truth. I was anything but useless. I was a force to be reckoned with, and I was just getting started. The sharp rap on my office door jolted me from my concentration. Before I could respond, it burst open, revealing Graham and Dustin, their faces contorted with a mix of desperation and rage. "You've got some nerve, Marlene," Graham snarled, storming towards my desk. I stood, my heart racing but my voice steady. "This is a private office. You need to leave." Dustin slammed his fist on my desk. "Not until you give us what we're owed." "Oh," I echoed, incredulous. "You're not owed anything." Graham's eyes narrowed. "Don't play dumb, Marlene. We know about your little windfall. Your father's inheritance." I felt a chill run down my spine. How had they found out? "That money should be ours," Dustin spat. "We're family." I laughed bitterly. "Family? Is that what you call it?" Years of belittling me, treating me like a servant. Graham stepped closer, his voice low and menacing. "I made you who you are. Everything you have is because of me." Something snapped inside me. Years of pent-up frustration and anger came pouring out. "You made me." I hissed. "No, Graham. You tried to break me. But guess what? I rebuilt myself. This company, my success, it's all mine. And you can't touch it." Graham's face reddened. You ungrateful bitch. After everything I've done for you dash. Done for me. I cut him off. Let's talk about what you've done, Graham. How about the years of emotional abuse? The financial control? Or should we discuss the fraud allegations against Thompson Industries? Both men paled at that. That's right, I continued, my voice gaining strength. I know all about it. And unlike you, I built my company honestly. With my own talent and hard work. Dustin lunged forward, but I stood my ground. You're lying. You must have stolen inside information from Dad's company. I shook my head, almost pitying him. No, Dustin. I didn't need to steal anything. My success comes from understanding what women like me have gone through. The invisible wives, the silent sufferers. I gave them a voice and they responded. Graham's bravado crumbled. Marlene, please. We're desperate. The company's gone, our assets are frozen. We need help. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd once loved. But then I remembered all the times he'd dismissed my needs, my dreams. I'm sorry you're in trouble, I said, my voice firm. But that's not my problem anymore. You can't just abandon us. Dustin shouted. What about loyalty? I met his gaze steadily. Loyalty goes both ways, Dustin. You and your father made it clear long ago where your loyalties lie. Graham's desperation turned to fury. You'll regret this, Marlene. We'll tell everyone how you betrayed your family, how you dash. Enough. I slammed my hand on the desk, startling them both. You want to talk betrayal? How about the years you spent tearing down my self-esteem? The countless times you made me feel worthless. I took a deep breath, centering myself. I don't owe you anything. Not my money, not my time, and certainly not my loyalty. Now, get out of my office before I call security. For a tense moment, I thought they might refuse. But then, deflated and defeated, they turned to leave. At the door, Graham paused. This isn't over, Marlene. I met his gaze, unflinching. Yes, Graham. It is. As the door closed behind them, I sank into my chair, adrenaline still coursing through my veins. I'd done it. I'd stood up to them, refused to be manipulated or guilt. My phone buzzed, a message from my mother. Everything okay, sweetheart? You seemed stressed earlier. I smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude for her unwavering support. Everything's fine, Mom, I typed back. In fact, it's better than ever. As I looked out over the city skyline, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The confrontation with Graham and Dustin hadn't just been about money or success. It was the final step in reclaiming my power, my voice. I was no longer the invisible wife. I was Marlene Thompson, CEO and advocate for women everywhere. And I was just getting started. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink as I stood on the balcony of my beachfront villa. The sound of waves lapping against the shore provided a soothing backdrop to my thoughts. Marlene, my mother's voice called from inside. Everything all right, sweetheart? I turned, smiling at Evelyn as she joined me. Everything's perfect, Mom. I was just thinking about how far we've come. Evelyn squeezed my hand, her eyes misty. Your father would be so proud of you, honey. I know I am. The mention of my father brought a bittersweet pang to my heart. His inheritance had been the catalyst for my new life, but it was my own strength that had seen me through. As we watched the last rays of sunlight fade, my phone buzzed. A news alert caught my eye. Former CEO Graham Thompson sentenced in fraud case. Evelyn noticed my expression. What is it? I showed her the article. Graham's going to prison. Dustin, too. How do you feel about that? She asked gently. I paused, considering. Relieved, I suppose. But also, sad. For the family we could have been if things had been different. Evelyn nodded, understanding in her eyes. You can't change the past, Marlene. But you've built an incredible future. As if on cue, my phone chimed again. This time, it was an email from my publishing team. Your book, The Invisible Wife No More, has hit the New York Times bestseller list. Tears of joy sprang to my eyes as I showed Mom the news. She pulled me into a tight hug, her pride palpable. You did it, sweetheart. You really did it. Later that evening, as we sat around the dinner table with some of the women I'd met through my blog, now dear friends, I felt a sense of completeness I'd never experienced before. Lisa, a former lawyer who'd left her abusive husband, raised her glass. To Marlene, who gave us all the courage to reclaim our lives. As the others echoed the toast, I felt overwhelmed with gratitude. No, I said, my voice thick with emotion. To all of us. For supporting each other, for refusing to stay invisible. After dinner, as the others chatted and laughed, I slipped away to my study. I opened my laptop, navigating to the Invisible Wife blog where it all began. My cursor hovered over the new post button. Taking a deep breath, I began to type. Dear friends, when I started this blog, I was a shadow of myself, voiceless, powerless, invisible. Today, I stand before you as a best-selling author, a successful entrepreneur, and most importantly, a woman who has reclaimed her identity. But this journey wasn't just about me. It was about all of us, the invisible wives, the silent sufferers, the women who were told they were nothing without their husbands. Together, we've proven just how wrong that notion is. To those still trapped in the cycle of emotional abuse and control, there is hope. There is a way out. You are stronger than you know, and you are not alone. To those who've already broken free, your resilience inspires me every day. Keep shining your light, keep telling your stories. And to Graham and Dustin, I hope you find the peace and understanding that eluded you in our family. Your actions have consequences, but your future is still unwritten. Choose wisely. As for me, this chapter of my life is coming to a close. But the story isn't over. It's just beginning. I can't wait to see what the next page holds, not just for me, but for all of us. With love and gratitude, Marlene. As I hit publish, I felt a profound sense of closure. The invisible wife was gone, replaced by a woman who stood proudly in the light of her own accomplishments. I rejoined the gathering, my heart full. As I looked around at these strong, resilient women, my mother, my friends, my chosen family, I knew that whatever challenges the future held, we would face them together. The sweet taste of justice had given way to something even more powerful. The joy of true independence and the strength of unbreakable bonds. This was my happily ever after, hard won and on my own terms. And it was only the beginning.